G'day guys, this is part one of a three-part series with Mario McKenna. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy. Hi and welcome to Karate Over Coffee. My name is Cheyne McMahon and I'm your host. This is a podcast dedicated to my experiences in karate. I started karate as soon as I could walk. My parents owned a full-time dojo, so I literally grew up in the dojo as our house was on top. I've lived and breathed karate my whole life. I've trained with some really amazing sensei, competed for my country, and I've learned so much about the evolution and history of karate. And I'm here to share my experiences and learn. Enjoy. G'day guys, welcome back to Karate Over Coffee. I've got my good friend Mario McKenna all the way from Canada. Mario, how are you, mate?
Good. I'm happy to be on.
Now, this is a Karate Over Coffee, so we were talking about coffee earlier, but if you missed it, Mario, I've got my Karate Over Coffee.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
You see the
Nice.
coffee that I'm using?
Yeah, karate, tori.
Yeah, just to be a little bit different. So how do you have your coffee, mate?
I just take it black, but it has to be good stuff. I usually buy something from a local shop down the road here called 49th Parallel. So maybe someone is a karate guy there.
Who knows?
Maybe they'll secretly hear and give me a free coffee.
Well, I interviewed a coffee guy next to me. I'm still waiting for my free coffee. I think maybe him and his wife were the only two listeners to that episode.
No. I'm sure there's lots. Yeah. So yeah, every morning have a nice, good cup of black coffee. So
yeah. There's a guy, Steve Armes, who's Canadian, and he's on Facebook always, every day, putting something about coffee. Every morning there's a different photo or something about always about coffee. So
okay.
But yeah, if I don't have coffee, I can't function without coffee. So
Yeah, pretty much in the morning I can't really function too good without it.
well, you know what I've noticed in the last maybe 10 years is coffee is so much better than it was, and there's more. You know, very similar to beer. You know, you've got your pale ales, your IPAs. You know,
Yeah.
there's way more selection for coffee. You know,
Your Radlers, yeah.
Yeah, it used to be like Nescafe, Blend 43, International Roast in Australia, just really freeze dried. McKenna was the go-to. And now I couldn't even drink that stuff.
You know, growing up, I wasn't a coffee drinker because, you know, my folks are from Ireland. So at home it was always tea, right? And then I didn't really still start drinking coffee till I moved to Japan. Because I think that was the first time I had like a really good cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of flavor.
Well, Japanese coffee is generally the drip coffee in the paper little net thing.
Yeah.
But just like Japanese culture, you need patience. It teaches you something, right? There's always a kata involved.
There's always the way.
There's always the way.
You know, and I'm paying $10 for this coffee, so it better taste good.
Coffee do. But Vietnamese coffee, mate. I love Vietnamese coffee.
Yeah, love it too.
Yeah.
I can only do one because it's pretty that sugar and that caffeine hit are pretty severe.
Oh yeah, that type of coffee I'm not a big fan of, like the condensed
the iced
milk.
coffee? You don't like with the condensed milk?
Nah,
and
it's
and
just
the ice and
it's just too sweet. Like since my wife is Korean, so we don't have a lot. So they don't have a lot of sweet things. So now, if something's like if it's sweet, I struggle to eat it. But just black Vietnamese coffee, it's nutty. Like the smell takes me back to Vietnam.
It's good stuff.
The best coffee I had was Indonesia, and that was the little animal that does a bit of a poop.
Oh, the squirrel kind of animal that poops out the bean.
Yeah, that coffee. Oh man, like once you get over the fact that, you know, you're drinking someone's shit. It's great. Very good. But anyway, let's get back to this is karate.
Yeah, sorry.
Over coffee, not coffee over karate.
Not coffee. We're not coffee entrepreneurs.
No, that's right. Well, just karate entrepreneurs. But how did you start in karate? How did you?
1984, grade 10. A friend of mine said, "Hey, you want to do karate?" And I was more interested in judo, so I was going to try and sign up for judo, but I had missed the registration. So then I ended up going with my friend to the karate school where he was interested in going.
Was it
and it was a Shotokan school.
Shotokan? Okay.
So this was in Canada, 1984, and it was in a town called Lethbridge, which was in Alberta, the province of Alberta. So
Yep.
yeah, so it was pretty rigid, typical kind of Shotokan, right? But
In the 80s, Shotokan?
enough that I it was interesting enough that I stuck it out. I thought it was okay. And then I just kind of persevered. But then the dojo collapsed 6 months in,
Oh, okay.
I think it was. And the reason being is the instructor was an RCMP member, Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Oh, okay.
And so he was transferred. And then, since the school was so young, there wasn't really anyone senior enough to keep it going. It sort of just fell apart.
Okay. And
yeah.
Where'd you go from there?
And then my seniors were talking about alternatives, because the dojo was closing, right? And so there was an Okinawan Goju dojo in the city that I didn't know about. And so they had mentioned it, and then I went and checked that out and gave it a go and liked it. It was so different from the Shotokan that I had been doing for such a brief time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, much more relaxed. Like, you still had to work hard, but no one was barking at you, right? No one was screaming at you. You weren't marching up and down the dojo, right?
Yeah, not 3K karate.
What was it, 80s? So it was still a lot of kihon, still a lot of kata, and it was still 3K, but it was just the vibe of the atmosphere of the dojo was quite more relaxed, right?
Okay.
You were expected to push, but no one was going to push you.
Yeah.
You had to push yourself, right? If you wanted to get good. And that was Kinjo Sensei. He was originally from Okinawa.
Okay. And is this the Naka Dojo? Is that what it's called?
He's Gohakai, Gohaku Ryu.
Okay.
Right? So his teacher is Tokashiki Iken. So Kinjo Sensei mostly taught the Goju kata from their line is Fukuchi Seiko, and then from Higa Seiko to Miyagi, right? So that's basically their line. So their Goju's not identical, but it's similar enough, right?
Yep.
And like Hokama Tetsuhiro comes from that lineage, right? From Fukuchi Sensei. So it's almost identical to what he was doing. But Tokashiki had learned, he called it Tomarite from Nakasone Seiyu, right? That was the first style he learned, and then he taught both of them in tandem.
Okay.
But Kinjo Sensei, for the most part, he only really taught the Goju piece, at least when I was a student.
And then how long did you train there, and how did you get to Japan?
Oh, okay. So I trained 84 to 91, 92. So 6-7 years, maybe a little bit longer. And then I made a trip to Okinawa first time in 88 to go to the Gohakai Hombu Dojo. And that was for 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, right? So I was went there, and then I came back and then trained a bit more. And then in 90, I think it was 91 or 92, I went to graduate school, right? So to do my master's degree. And that was in the next province over. So that was Saskatchewan, right? So I went from Alberta to go east, and the next province over is Saskatchewan. So I was there for just under 2 years. I didn't do much training.
What is graduate school? We don't have it.
Master's degree.
After uni?
After your bachelor's, after your uni.
Oh, okay,
right?
okay.
So you do your 4-year uni, and then you can do your honors, and then after that you can do like a graduate level degree for a master's, and then after that 3 more years, and you can do like a PhD.
Yeah. Okay. What did you study at uni?
Sports science, sports psychology. Yeah. So I did that for 2 years, and then I graduated, and then I liked my experience in Japan so much I went back in the summer of '94. So I was only going to go for a year and some change, I thought, just to go, do a little bit of teaching, teach some English or something, hang out, learn, and then try and study some more martial arts, right?
Yeah.
And then 1 year became 8.5, 9, I don't know, somewhere in there.
And then every year you go back, or not at the moment.
And then I ended up getting married. I got a job. I started settling down. But when I hit my 30s, I just kind of have had enough. So it's a separate story, but I just kind of was like, I'm feeling a bit burnt out. And so I talked to my wife and she's like, sure, we'll go back to Canada and I said, look, we'll go for a couple of years. If you don't like it, we'll just move back. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
And we moved here and she kind of liked it. So we stayed.
How long have you been back for? 20 years or so?
20 years now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I'm thinking the opposite. Like when I retire, maybe it's time to move back to Japan.
Yeah, which is really strange because most people would want to retire and move to Canada, right?
Yeah, I loved Japan. I just didn't. I think the reason I was starting to burn out is because the work culture is so intense.
Yeah.
And that work-life balance is really hard.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better now, but in the late '90s and early 2000s, it was pretty tough. At least, for me, I thought it was.
What were you doing in Japan?
So initially, I just did the teaching English bit, right?
Oh yeah.
Which is fine. But eventually, I started working at Nagasaki Heavy Industries for the Department of Human Resources, right? For the HR. Right?
Yeah.
And those were long days. So, Monday to Friday, on paper it's 9 to 5, but it's like maybe like 8:30 to 7:30, and then your boss wants to go drinking after in that stereotypical fashion.
And you can't say no.
You can't say no. And then it was a half day on Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Which ended up being a full day.
Yeah. Unpaid.
So, yeah, it was tough. I just near the end, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah.
I lived in Korea for 2 years in Seoul.
Yeah, I'm sure it's similar.
Yeah, 2 years was enough for me, man. I'd had enough. I couldn't imagine 8 years. No way. Like,
well, our good friend Joe Swift, like he's been there 20 years. I'm like, wow.
He can barely speak English anymore.
The power to him. Pardon?
He can hardly speak English.
He just needs a gentle prodding, poking to remember, right?
Yeah.
And then the software and the hardware kicks in again.
Well, the one thing Tokyo, Japan, Korea, same as the amount of people. We both come from a big country with a smallish population, and when you go to Tokyo or Seoul, it's just people everywhere. You just can't get away. Like you can't get on a bus by yourself. You can't go on the subway by yourself. It's just somebody.
No, like I lived in Nagasaki, but by Japanese standards, Nagasaki was small.
It's a population
was like half a million people, right?
Yeah.
By Canadian standards, that's a huge city.
A metropolis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can understand your frustration. But where did you move to first, and how did you?
So because I was teaching English, it was through the JET program.
Okay.
Right, you've heard of that, the Japan English Teaching Exchange Program, right?
They just put you
somewhere. I put on your application, you can list your top 3 places you want to go, right? So I went Okinawa. So thinking I'd get Okinawa, right?
Yeah.
And I got 3 islands up. I got Amami Oshima, which was originally part of Okinawa Prefecture, but then was, given back to Kagoshima after the war, right? Or it was kind of assumed under Kagoshima Prefecture and the Americans. And anyway, it's a long story. So there I ended up learning, mostly I kind of focused on Kobudo when I was on the island, because there was a teacher there that was, pardon?
Is it Shinkokai? Is it the Ryukyu?
Yeah, Shinkokai, right?
Yeah.
So they're a branch of So my teacher was a student of Taira Shinken,
Yep. Okay.
Katsuhiko. And he was part of and then when they, just like anything, when Taira Sensei passed away, they were all kind of one unified group under the Ryukyu Kobudo Hozon Shinkokai, right?
Yeah.
And they sort of kept together for a while, and then they all started splintering. And typically what happens, they splinter into a million pieces. So I didn't care. I just was interested in Kobudo, and I started studying with Minoa Sensei when I was there. And yeah, it was a great experience.
Was he doing Weichi-Ryu?
He was a he was a Weichi-Ryu teacher as well. His teacher was Weichi Kanye.
Yeah. So, okay. Wow.
Yeah, so he had a pretty good pedigree if you're kind of into that. I just kind of cared more of him as an instructor. And he's pretty old school, but he was still a good instructor, and he was pretty knowledgeable.
Did you do Weichi with him as well?
I did, but very reluctantly. And I dodged it for maybe 4 or 5 months. I just kept saying, no, I don't want to do it. I just want to do Kobudo. I kept telling him I'm a Goju guy. It's my thing. And then he just kept pestering me. Yeah. That's not a good choice of words. He just kept asking me, and I kept saying no. And then finally, I just said, "Okay, I'll give it a go, Sensei. Why not?" He goes, "You've got nothing to lose. Why don't you just try it?" And he goes, "After you leave, do what you want with it." And I'm like, "Okay," and I did. So I did a little bit of Weichi for a while.
Yep. What did you think?
Pain. It's like the house of pain.
Yeah.
Those guys are so well conditioned, so well conditioned. I was so impressed, and I learned a ton from them. Just amazing guys. Just the style, just the beauty of the simplicity of the style and its efficiency is just fantastic.
And
absolutely fantastic.
The small amount of kata.
Yeah, the small amount of kata, the emphasis on conditioning, the emphasis on close-in fighting, the emphasis on kumite almost from the outset, right? In the at least in the Weichi Kanye lineage, right? And they have decent 2-person pre-arranged kumite too, right?
Yeah.
Like I always joke to my students, like a year of Goju Ryu will probably get you killed in a fight, but a year in Weichi you'll be able to survive.
You'll be doing the killing.
You'll be able to survive at least the encounter, right? They have their pluses and minuses, their merits and their deficits, and in the end they do even out. But at the outset, just given the base of the 2 different kind of bases that they work from, Weichi is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so from there, how did you get? I suppose you're probably more. For those who don't know you, you're a bit more famous. I mean, not famous is not the right word, but
infamous. That's a better word. Infamous. Infamous for To'on.
Yeah, for To'on Ryu, right? So
yeah.
How did you get? Yeah, how did you?
That. I had vaguely known about the style because, oddly enough, I don't know. Like, there's an old book by George Alexander, with teacher bios in it, and it had one about Kyoto Juhatsu, right, which was the founder of To'on, right?
Yep.
And I remember way back in my grad school days, remember, like, it wasn't the internet, it was just sort of like a message board and like these green or black and white screens, and everything was just text, right? And I remember it was one on karate, and what was it called again? I don't remember. And I had asked about To'on Ryu, and nobody knew what I was talking about. So, but the name and the style, because it said, he was a student with Miyagi Chojun under Higo Nakanyo, and I like Goju, so I figured I might as well try and find something about it. Nope, couldn't find anything.
Okay.
But oddly enough, I wrote Patrick McCarthy and asked him, like, do you know anything? And he said, oh, sure. And he gave me the address of the headmaster, Kanzaki Sensei.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, but here's the rub. So I'm still on Amami at the time, and he gave me the address, and I lost it. And I was so embarrassed that I did not want to email him again. Write him or ask him again. Could you mind resending it, because I lost it like a dummy. And I just waited until I started my job in Nagasaki. So I got my job in Nagasaki at Mitsubishi, and I started working there. And then I started trying to figure out more about To'on again. And then that's when Joe Swift told me, "Oh, you should go to." Like this was just a separate conversation. It had nothing to do with To'on, but he said you should go to Fukuoka and talk to Murakami Sensei. Right, he's got a lot of experience. He's a really interesting guy. Even if you just have a coffee with him, he's just a great guy to talk to. So I said, okay. So I went to Fukuoka and I met Murakami Sensei, and really, really just generous man, very insightful, very knowledgeable. Wrote tons of books on karate and Kobudo. But when his dojo is by his house, and so when he took me to show me his dojo, on the front, like there's the placards, right? In the characters, and one side it says Shorin because he was predominantly a Shorin Ryu instructor, and the other side it said To'on Ryu. And I went, what? My jaw hit the ground. I had no idea. And so I just started chatting with him and said, hey, didn't know you did To'on Ryu. And then he said, yeah, I did a little bit in the 50s, and I learned a little bit from Kyoto Sensei and this, that, and the other. And I said, great, will you teach me? And he said, no.
Fair enough.
He just shut me down in like 2 seconds. He just went, nope, not going to teach it to you. I'm like, and I thought like, okay, did I hear that wrong? And I so stupidly asked again. And he said, I haven't even taught my own children. I'm not going to teach you.
Yeah.
I went, oh, okay. Point taken. Just leave it alone. Didn't push it.
Did he say why?
Or just nope. Okay. No, it's because it's a first meeting, right? And so you don't want to make anyone feel awkward, and especially like, it's Japan, the person's much, much older than you, much more respected. I'm in his home and his dojo, so I'm not going to cause any.
Come on, bro, just teach me.
Yeah, like what's the point?
Oh, you've got the advert at the front.
Yeah, it's like you got the sign, I don't get it. And then I went back a while later, and then at the end of our meeting, he handed me a piece of paper, and he said, if you want to learn To'on Ryu, talk to Kanzaki Sensei. So the exact same address that I had lost a year ago is now back in my hands. So fate is kind of weird that way.
Please tell me you didn't lose that one.
This time I didn't lose it.
Back then it would have been handy to have the camera phone, so you can just take a photo.
Yeah, it would have been handy. I just pick up my phone and then just take a picture, right?
Yeah. So have you?
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
Have you spoken? Have you been back to Murakami, or is he still around?
He's still around. I think he just turned 90. I had just sent. I think he just turned 95.
Still many years left.
Yeah, because I had sent him a birthday card greeting.
Okay.
Because he was born in 28, I think. 28 or 27. Sorry, 27. So he's 95.
Okay. Probably still teaching too.
I think the only thing he's doing now is he just does his own thing. Like he does a little bit of Tai Chi and stuff like that every now and then.
Yeah. Hopefully he taught somebody his To'on Ryu.
He does. A couple of his students are still teaching. So I'm hoping to get to Japan this year in the fall, maybe, or the winter, and I'm hoping to be able to at least drop by and say hello.
The winter, of this year?
Like November, I'm thinking like November of this year.
Okay.
That's the plan, at least when I talk to my wife. But it all really just depends on how things, how open Japan wants to be.
Yeah, if you wait 2 months, why don't you go in January? Because that's when I'm going.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll just go and just stay.
Yeah. Oh, just on that, I was talking to Mario earlier. My father invited Mario to Brisbane in 2001. I think we said, wasn't it? 2001. 2001. And if people listen to my episode earlier, two things. One, I was talking to a guy named Josh Simmers, who has an Okinawan karate podcast, and
Okay.
the only podcast on Okinawa, and that's his tagline. And anyway, he asked me who would I like to come onto my podcast, and I said, I'd love to have Mario McKenna, because I'd spoken to him on and off for a while, but hadn't spoken to him for ages. So he was a bit of a recluse. So I would love to have him on my podcast. So boom, here we are. And then I was telling him a funny story about when you were here in Australia, that I got you so drunk the night before you almost missed your flight.
Yeah, that's really good.
It was funny because back then you would have been 30.
I would have been like 31,
31, like
32.
It's like such a baby.
You would have been like 20, 21.
19, yeah, 19, 20,
19,
yeah.
20.
And like even 31 is still such a baby, right? And I thought, oh, this guy's old. I thought he's mature. Like he's so far more mature than I. And because we were drinking scotch and blood, and you're like, I'm not good drinking that. I'll only drink 12 or 18-year-old scotch. And looking back, like, yeah, of course, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to drink that? But at that time, it was So great to have you on. And
I appreciate it.
You've listened to a lot of my episodes. No,
I've caught up. I went back and I listened to a few. It's good. It's good. Yeah. You have a nice presentation style.
Just like my karate mate, very relaxed.
Excellent.
There is no us in my dojo.
Yeah, no using.
No using. No highing. This is Australia.
No high. Everyone's on a first name basis.
Yeah, that's right. You can call me Cheyne. You don't have to call me Sensei. It's up to you. Because I know some people feel more comfortable calling me Sensei, especially if they've done karate somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I won't tolerate us. Like, God, it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I had a student do that to me the other day. It's like, because he was ex-Shotokan. He's like, us. I'm like, oh, please don't say that. Please don't say that.
Like, yeah, I get the culture, but it's not my culture, and this is my dojo.
No, this is, like, I think there's some similarities for sure between Australian and Canadian culture and US culture too. Like, it's much more egalitarian, right?
Sometimes
and you're not going to have that kind of militant sort of.
I think it depends on who your instructor was, right? Like,
true,
and how far you mimic that instructor, and how far you've come to teach your own style, not your own style as such, like karate style, but your own personality into your training. Like I'm a very relaxed person, so that is my karate dojo. And, we're very relaxed, and we don't bow. We do one bow, and then we're into it.
Like if people aren't comfortable with it, I totally get it.
Yeah. I mean, some people want the awesome, and they just don't last at my dojo. They just go somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, so to each his own.
To each their own. Now let's get back to a bit of a side note there. But so how did you approach? Was he the head of To'on Ryu at that stage?
Yeah, Kanzaki Sensei. He had kind of informally. He was the last man standing, so to speak. He was the headmaster, right? Because essentially the style was inherited by Kyota's son Juko, right?
Yep.
But unfortunately, Juko Sensei passed away. He had like a massive stroke in like '86.
Okay.
So, and then he didn't, and his kids never pursued karate. They weren't interested in, so there's no one left in the family. So Kanzaki Sensei just kept going.
Yep. Okay.
And he sort of just inherited the system.
And how long did you train there?
Not long. It was just like maybe altogether in total like 2 years.
Okay.
Right. But
Yeah.
it was a pretty intense 2 years. And then when I came back, like I would go back every year almost with my wife, and every year I'd go back and go study with them, right?
Yeah.
So I'd go to my wife's in-laws, say hello, hey, how's it going? Hey, lovely to see you. Okay, all right, walkabout, bye.
Yeah.
And I'd go and disappear, right? I'd just
Yeah.
go vanish and go over to Oita in Beppu, right, which is the city, and go see my teacher.
Yeah.
It was pretty fast because you could buy a rail pass and then you could just jump on the express trains and you can be there relatively quickly.
Yeah. And
so it was pretty easy to get out there. And he was retired, so I was like, when do you want to train? I'm like,
yeah.
okay, just jump on the train and go out and train and come back.
Well, To'on is pretty, as you said, not well known outside of a certain circle of people.
Yeah.
Why do you think? Because so you have Miyagi's Goju is huge. Why do you think that?
Yeah, why Kyoto's never took off?
Yeah.
I think the biggest factor is he didn't stay on the island.
But he went to Japan.
He left. He went to the mainland in 44, I think.
Okay.
Somewhere around there, and he didn't have a presence on the island. And as far as I know, he never went back.
Yeah.
Even for a visit. He died on the mainland. He's buried on the mainland.
Okay.
So whereas Miyagi, he stayed on Okinawa. He was extremely well known, very well respected. Taught his students, and his body of students, the primary ones, that we all know, like Higa and Miyazato and Yagi, etc. They propagated their own schools of Goju, and right. Yep. And then the U.S. servicemen got involved, and then that really helped things explode, right? And then on the Japanese mainland, you had Gogen Yamaguchi, right, spreading Goju Kai on the mainland. So Goju became a pretty well-known style. As far as I know, none of Kyoto's students really continued. He only had a handful. The most prominent was a guy called Iraha Choko. And he became more of a politician on Okinawa and didn't really have much time for training. And as far as I know, didn't really teach anyone. Because I was in contact with his nephew over a number of years, and he said, no, he never really passed on the style to anybody, right? Okay. Ironically, his nephew was a Goju guy. So that was kind of funny. And then on the mainland, when Kyoto was there, he really just kind of taught his son, Juko. Yeah. That was it. He was not really concerned about teaching. Like, he taught some of the kids in the neighborhood, but it wasn't terribly serious. There wasn't really any adults.
Was there friction between Miyagi and Kyoto? Well, I hope you enjoyed part 1 with Mario McKenna. Stay tuned for part 2. Thank you for listening to Karate Over Coffee. And if you're enjoying the podcast and getting something out of the episodes, there are a few things you can do to help us. If you don't already subscribe to us on YouTube, please do so. We release these episodes every Friday morning, Australian time. Plus, we release some smaller espresso shots during the week on both our YouTube channel and our Facebook community group. You can also subscribe to us on our Apple or Spotify. Leaving a 5-star review will be very beneficial as well. If you have any suggestions or topics or feedback or anything that you want to talk about, please put it in our comment section on our Karate Over Coffee community Facebook group. If you'd like to support us, please visit our online shop where we have official Karate Over Coffee shirts, hoodies and mugs available. Your continued support is appreciated and a vital way for the podcast to keep moving forward. Thanks, guys.